My husband suggested opening our marriage. So I downloaded dating apps and got hundreds of matches while he got none. 6 months later, I discovered he'd been cheating all along, and now I'm happy as a single woman. I, 29F, have been married to Ethan, 36M, for 2 years. We met at a friend's housewarming party 5 years ago. I was still nursing the wounds from a messy breakup with my college sweetheart, so I initially brushed off Ethan's attempts to ask me out. But he was persistent, in a charming way. After a few weeks of running into each other at mutual friends' gatherings, I finally agreed to a coffee date. From the start, Ethan was different from anyone I'd dated before. He was older, more established in his career, and seemed to have his life together in a way that was refreshing after my experiences with guys my own age. Our first date turned into a second, then a third, and before I knew it, we were officially a couple. Our relationship moved quickly. Within 3 months, I had introduced Ethan to my parents and moved in with him. It felt right, and Ethan assured me he was comfortable with the pace. My parents were a bit concerned about how fast things were moving, especially given our age difference, but they could see how happy I was and eventually came around. A year after we started dating, Ethan proposed during a weekend trip to the beach. It was sunset. We were walking along the shore, and he got down on one knee in the sand. It was like something out of a romance movie. I said yes without hesitation. We got married 6 months later in a small ceremony with close friends and family. The first year of our marriage was blissful. We traveled, we nested in our new home, and we talked about our future together. Ethan was supportive of my career ambitions, and I admired his drive and success in his own field. For our second anniversary last month, I wanted to do something special. Ethan had been working long hours on a big project at work, and I thought we could use some quality time together. I planned a surprise weekend getaway to a luxury resort a few hours away. I spent weeks organizing everything, from the fancy dinner reservations to the couple's spa treatments. I even reached out to Ethan's favorite local band and arranged for them to do a private acoustic set for us at the resort. The weekend started off great. Ethan seemed genuinely surprised and touched by the effort I'd put into planning everything. We had a romantic dinner on our first night, followed by dancing under the stars. Ethan held me close and whispered how lucky he felt to be married to me. But on the second day, I noticed a change in Ethan's demeanor. He was constantly checking his phone and seemed distracted during our couple's massage and wine tasting. I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe he was stressed about work, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. When we got home on Sunday evening, Ethan was quiet as we unpacked. I asked him if everything was okay, and that's when he dropped the bombshell. He said he felt suffocated in our marriage and wanted to try opening it up. I was stunned. I asked him to explain, and he said he felt like he missed out on experiencing other relationships, since I was only his third serious girlfriend. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. How could he suggest this after the romantic weekend we just had? I told him I wasn't comfortable with an open marriage and that it went against everything I believed about commitment. I reminded him of our wedding vows, of the promises we'd made to each other. Ethan insisted that it would be good for both of us. He said we could set ground rules and that it might even strengthen our relationship. I was furious. How could exploring other romantic and sexual relationships possibly make us closer? We argued for hours. Ethan accused me of being close-minded and said I was holding him back from fully experiencing life. I accused him of being selfish and disrespecting our marriage. The conversation went in circles, with neither of us willing to budge from our position. Finally, in a moment of anger and hurt, I sarcastically agreed to his suggestion. I told him fine, let's open up our marriage right now. I grabbed my phone and downloaded 3 different dating apps on the spot. I started creating profiles, using recent photos of myself and filling out the bios with slightly exaggerated descriptions of my interests and personality. Ethan seemed taken aback by my sudden enthusiasm for the idea. He watched, wide-eyed, as I swiped right on every guy I saw. I was running on pure adrenaline and spite, determined to show Ethan that if this was what he wanted, I could play this game too. Within hours, my phone was buzzing nonstop with matches and messages. By the next day, I had hundreds of guys trying to chat with me. Some were clearly just looking for hookups, but others seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me. When I showed Ethan my phone, his face turned pale. He admitted he hadn't gotten any matches yet. I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction seeing his reaction. This was what he wanted, wasn't it? But as the initial anger wore off, the reality of our situation started to sink in. I realized that Ethan and I were at a crossroads in our marriage. His suggestion to open our relationship had made me question everything I thought I knew about him and about us as a couple. Looking back, there were signs I had ignored. Ethan had always been a bit of a flirt, even after we got married. I used to brush it off as harmless, but now I wondered if it was a sign of his discontent. He also never seemed as excited as I was when we talked about future plans like buying a house or having kids. At the time, I thought he was just being practical, but now I wondered if he had been having doubts all along. Now, Ethan is begging me to delete the apps. He says he made a mistake and wants to work on our marriage. But I'm not sure I want to. His suggestion to open our marriage has shaken my trust in him to its core. I've realized that Ethan and I might have very different values when it comes to commitment. I always thought we were on the same page, but now I'm not so sure. I'm starting to wonder if I really know Ethan at all, or if I just fell in love with the idea of him. The successful, charming older man who swept me off my feet. I'm hurt, angry, and confused. Part of me wants to give Ethan another chance. After all, we've built a life together over the past 5 years. We have a home, shared friends, and until now, what I thought was a strong marriage. The thought of walking away from all of that is terrifying. But a bigger part of me feels like this might be a deal breaker. I don't know if I can ever look at Ethan the same way again. Every time he touches me now, I wonder if he's thinking about being with someone else. Every time he checks his phone, I wonder if he's messaging other women. I've talked to a few close friends about the situation, and their opinions are mixed. Some think I should try to work things out with Ethan, saying that marriages go through rough patches and this could just be a phase. Others are urging me to leave, saying that Ethan has shown his true colors and I deserve better. I'm torn about what to do next. Should I delete the apps and try to repair my marriage with Ethan? Or should I take this as a sign that we're fundamentally incompatible and end things now before we're in even deeper? So, Aedia for refusing to delete my dating apps? Am I overreacting to Ethan's suggestion, or is this truly as big of a deal as it feels? Should I try to work things out, or is this the end of our marriage? I could really use some outside perspective on this situation. Update 1. It's been about 3 weeks since my last post, and a lot has happened. First, I want to thank everyone for their comments and support. Reading through them helped me gain some clarity and courage to face the situation head on. After my initial post, Ethan and I had several long, emotional conversations. He apologized profusely for suggesting we open our marriage and swore he didn't actually want to be with anyone else. He said he was just going through a midlife crisis, at 36, and feeling insecure about getting older. According to him, seeing me plan such an amazing anniversary weekend made him feel inadequate, like he wasn't exciting enough for me anymore. I told Ethan that while I appreciated his apology, his suggestion had irreparably damaged my trust in him and our relationship. I explained that I couldn't just forget what happened and move on like nothing had changed. His words had opened a Pandora's box of doubts and insecurities that I was struggling to close. Ethan begged me to give him another chance. He suggested we go to couples counseling to work through our issues. He even offered to let me check his phone and emails anytime I wanted, to prove he wasn't hiding anything. But I told him I needed some time and space to think things through on my own. I decided to stay with my older sister, Rachel, for a while. Being away from Ethan has given me the opportunity to reflect on our relationship without his influence, and the more I think about it, the more I realize there were problems I had been ignoring. For instance, Ethan has always been hesitant about having children. When we were dating, he said he definitely wanted kids, someday. But since we got married, whenever I brought up the topic, he would say he wasn't ready yet, or that we should wait until we were more financially stable. But we both have good jobs and own our home. I'm starting to wonder if he ever intended to have kids with me, or if he was just telling me what I wanted to hear. There's also the issue of Ethan's relationship with his ex-girlfriend, Megan. They dated for 3 years before breaking up about a year before Ethan and I met. Ethan always insisted they were just friends, but I recently found out they meet for lunch every few weeks. Ethan never mentioned these lunches to me, and when I asked him about it, he got defensive and accused me of not trusting him. While staying at Rachel's, I've been reconnecting with some of my old friends who I had lost touch with after getting married. One of them, Alex, told me something interesting. Apparently, Ethan had a reputation for being a player back in his late 20s. He would often juggle multiple women at once, telling each of them they were exclusive. Alex warned me about this when Ethan and I first started dating, but I brushed it off, thinking Ethan had changed. This information has made me question everything I thought I knew about Ethan. Was our entire relationship built on lies? Did he ever truly want to be monogamous, or was he just waiting for an opportunity to suggest opening up our marriage? I've decided to keep the dating apps on my phone for now. I haven't actually met up with anyone, but chatting with other guys has been a confidence boost. It's reminded me that there are plenty of men out there who value commitment and monogamy as much as I do. Ethan has been calling and texting nonstop, begging me to come home. He says he'll do anything to fix our marriage. He's even offered to quit his job and find a new one so he won't be working with Megan anymore. But I'm not sure there's anything he can do at this point. The trust is broken, and I don't know if it can be repaired. I'm seriously considering filing for divorce. The thought terrifies me, but I also feel a sense of relief when I imagine a future without Ethan. I think that says a lot about where I'm at emotionally. Rachel has been incredibly supportive through all of this. She's reminded me of how strong and independent I was before I met Ethan. She thinks I lost a part of myself in this relationship, and maybe she's right. I've been so focused on being the perfect wife that I neglected my own needs and desires. And I have an appointment with a divorce lawyer next week to discuss my options. I haven't told Ethan yet. Part of me feels guilty for taking this step without talking to him first. But another part feels like I need to protect myself and my interests. Last night, I went through our wedding album. Looking at those photos, I barely recognized the beaming, hopeful bride I was 2 years ago. I wonder if Ethan felt the same doubts then that he's expressing now. Were we both just caught up in the romance of it all, ignoring the red flags? I'm trying to stay strong, but there are moments when I break down. The other day, I was at the grocery store and saw Ethan's favorite cereal. I burst into tears right there in the middle of the aisle. It's the little things that hit me the hardest. The reminders of the life we built together and the future we had planned. But then I remember the look on Ethan's face when he suggested opening our marriage, and the pain comes rushing back. I don't know if I can ever unsee that or unhear his words. I'll keep you all updated on what happens next. Thank you again for all your support and advice. It means more than you know. Update 2. It's been about a month since my last update, and things have taken an unexpected turn. I met with the divorce lawyer as planned and started the process of filing for divorce. When I told Ethan, he was devastated but said he understood and wouldn't contest it. However, a few days after I filed, I received a message on one of the dating apps from a woman named Olivia. She said she had been seeing Ethan for the past 8 months and had just found out he was married. Olivia sent me screenshots of their conversations and photos they had taken together. I was shocked and heartbroken. Not only had Ethan suggested opening our marriage, but he had already been cheating on me for months. When I confronted him, Ethan broke down and admitted everything. He said it started as a casual flirtation at a work conference, but quickly turned into a full-blown affair. Ethan begged for forgiveness, saying he had ended things with Olivia and wanted to work on our marriage. But for me, this was the final straw. I told him there was no coming back from this level of betrayal. I've since moved out of our house permanently and am staying with Rachel while I look for my own place. Ethan has been sending me long emails and voicemails, alternating between apologies and accusations. In his latest message, he blamed me for the affair, saying if I had been more attentive and less focused on my career, he wouldn't have strayed. His attempts to shift blame have only reinforced my decision to end our marriage. I realize now that Ethan is manipulative and selfish, and I deserve better. The divorce proceedings are moving forward, and I hope to have everything finalized within the next few months. It's been a difficult journey, but I'm proud of myself for standing my ground and not letting Ethan manipulate me into staying in an unhealthy relationship. I've been focusing on healing and rediscovering myself. I've started taking a photography class I've always been interested in, and I'm planning a solo trip to Europe next month. For the first time in years, I feel excited about the future. Rachel suggested I see a therapist to help process everything that's happened, and I've had a few sessions. It's been helpful to talk through my feelings with a neutral party and to start unpacking some of the issues in my relationship with Ethan that I had ignored or rationalized away. I've also been spending more time with my parents. They've been incredibly supportive, despite their initial reservations about my relationship with Ethan. My mom reminded me of a conversation we had right before my wedding, where she asked if I was sure about marrying Ethan. At the time, I dismissed her concerns as typical pre-wedding jitters. Now, I wish I had listened more carefully. As for the dating apps, I've kept them but haven't been very active. I'm not ready to start dating again, but it's comforting to know that there are options out there when I am ready. Ethan's family has reached out to me, asking me to reconsider the divorce. They say Ethan is a mess and that everyone makes mistakes, but I've stood firm in my decision. I explained to them that this wasn't just about the affair, but about a pattern of dishonesty and disrespect that I can no longer tolerate. Looking back, I can see how much I compromised myself in this relationship. I gave up hobbies, distanced myself from friends, and put my own dreams on hold to support Ethan's career. I don't want to be that person anymore. Thank you all for your continued support throughout this ordeal. Your words of encouragement have been a source of strength during this challenging time. I'm not sure what the future holds, but for the first time in a long time, I'm excited to find out. Update 3. It's been 6 months since my last update, and I'm happy to report that my divorce from Ethan was finalized last week. The process was smoother than I expected, largely because Ethan didn't contest anything once he realized I was serious about ending our marriage. In the months leading up to the divorce, I discovered even more about Ethan's infidelity. It turns out Olivia wasn't the only woman he had been seeing. Through mutual friends, I learned about at least 2 other affairs he had during our marriage. Each revelation was painful, but it also reinforced that I had made the right decision in leaving. I moved into my own apartment 2 months ago. It's the first time I've lived alone, and I'm loving the independence. I've redecorated the space to reflect my personal style, something I never felt free to do when living with Ethan. My walls are now covered in colorful art prints and photos from my travels. It feels like a fresh start. My photography hobby has turned into a part-time business. I've been doing portrait sessions and small events on weekends, and it's been incredibly fulfilling. A few weeks ago, I was hired to photograph a local music festival, which was a dream come true. I'm considering taking some business classes to see if I can turn this into a full-time career. The solo trip to Europe I mentioned in my last update was transformative. I spent 3 weeks traveling through Italy, France, and Spain. It was challenging at times, being on my own in foreign countries, but it was also empowering. I met some amazing people, tried new things, and rediscovered parts of myself that I had lost during my marriage. Ethan has made a few attempts to reconcile, but I've stood firm in my decision. Our last interaction was at the courthouse when we signed the final divorce papers. He looked tired and defeated, a far cry from the confident man I married. Part of me felt sorry for him, but a bigger part felt relieved to be closing this chapter of my life. I've started reconnecting with old friends and making new ones. Last weekend, I went to a local art fair with a group of women I met through my photography class. It was refreshing to be around people who share my interests and support my goals. As for dating, I'm taking it slow. I've been on a few casual dates, nothing serious yet. I'm enjoying the process of getting to know people without the pressure of finding the one. I've learned that it's okay to take my time and that being single doesn't mean being alone. My relationship with my family has grown stronger through this experience. My sister Rachel has been my rock, and my parents have been incredibly supportive. We've had some deep conversations about relationships, self-worth, and what I want for my future. Their love and guidance have been invaluable. Looking ahead, I'm excited about the possibilities. I'm considering going back to school to get my master's degree, something I had put on hold when I got married. I'm also planning more travel adventures and thinking about adopting a dog. There are still moments when I feel sad or angry about how things ended with Ethan, but those moments are becoming fewer and farther between. Mostly, I feel grateful for the lessons I've learned and optimistic about what's to come. To anyone going through a similar situation, know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. It may not feel like it now, but you will come out stronger on the other side. Trust yourself. Surround yourself with supportive people, and don't be afraid to put your own happiness first. Thank you all for being part of my journey. Your support and advice have been invaluable, and I'm grateful for this community. Here's to new beginnings and brighter days ahead.